Mr. Paul Hamilton joins us. Good Wednesday morning. It is cold. 34 degrees outside. Freeze warning.
It's going to warm up today, though, into the 50s.
All right, but it's cold overnight. Hey, Paul, good morning. How are you today?
So am I going to be cold walking around Boston or what?
I don't know about
I haven't seen the Boston forecast.
Although if it's cold here, I think typically it's not that far off in Boston. So.
Right.
The forecast for the weekend in Boston, Paul, when are they there? When's their next day in Boston? Today's Wednesday. They're on
tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
58 and rainy.
Ugh.
No, it's not great.
There you go. So you won't be that cold, you'll be wet.
Although, did you ever do the Freedom Trail in Boston? I did that.
Yes.
I did that in the pouring rain, and it was actually kind of cool. I mean, we were the only ones doing it. Maybe that's why it was cool. I don't know.
So you actually enjoyed running around the pouring rain?
Yeah,
it was probably in the 80s though too. It probably wasn't like in the 50s.
That's a good point. It wasn't. It definitely wasn't 50 and rainy. 50 and rainy, a lot less enjoyable.
No.
I would think.
We did the duck boat tours in Boston this summer. It was great.
I like Boston. Are you in Boston long enough, Paul, though, to really like
Probably
do
not.
anything in the city?
Not really, because I have a later flight, so I could go
Right.
to practice today. So I don't even get out of Buffalo till 5:30.
Gotcha.
And then we have the game, and then I'm back here Halloween morning.
All right. Paul Hamilton's appearance brought to you by Raylax Honda. Raylax, we got this. Talking Sabres last night. They lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets, a 4-3 overtime loss. Paul, kind of open it up to whatever you want to say here. Joe and I, our first segment was a lot of things are better in some ways, and there's lots to maybe like about this team, yet for like the fifth straight year through 10 games, they're pretty much in the same spot that they always are in. And that is with improvements to the power play, the goaltending,
penalty kill.
the penalty kill, the overall defensive play from the blue line. They are kind of getting things they sought to get, and they're in the same spot. So have it that.
Not necessarily. They are 4-1-2 in their last 7 games. They have points in every game except one. I think what the concerning part is in the last 2 games. Well, first of all, I was kind of in the beginning of the year. It's like they got to start getting games to overtime. And they didn't play. They didn't play well in the first 3 games, but yet all 3 games are 1-goal games in the third, and you didn't get any points out of it. You really wasted 3 very good goaltended games, where your goaltender had a save percentage of around 920, and you got nothing, and not a point. So I was saying they got to find ways to get games to at least get a point out of a game, and then they play Montreal pretty even. Montreal had the better of the play for a bit. Buffalo had the better of play for a bit. The shots were within 1. Both teams were in the 30s, and they didn't get a point out of that game. Now all of a sudden they're getting points out of games. The last 2 games, it's they've gotten it to overtime. They get the loser point, but they should have won both games. Mm-hmm. That's the point of that one. I mean, all right, now you've gotten your loser point, which is good. But I mean, if I would have said you're going to go play home and home against Toronto and take 3 out of 4 points before it starts, everybody's in for that until you play it, and then you're a couple of minutes from winning both games, and you're playing well. And as Lindy Ruff said, you gave up 1 scoring chance in the third period, and it goes in the net because your goaltender missed it. And then you lose in overtime, and these are 2 conference opponents that you should have walked away with 2 points, and they should have walked away with none, and you walked away with 1, and they walked away with 2 because of sloppy play from whoever. And that's, I think, a little bit concerning that these were 2 games where they weren't sitting back. They were playing a good third period. Probably Toronto a little bit better than the one yesterday, but still they were playing a good third period. And then it's all of a sudden in your net. And then you have in both overtimes, grade A golden opportunity to win the hockey game by players that you would want in the situations they were in. And you can't get that overtime goal, and next thing you know, it's in your net. And that's, I think, a little bit concerning, despite, now they're getting the points, and they've gotten points in all but 1 game in their last 7, but that's 2 games in a row now where I think they should have walked away with wins and they didn't.
Right. It would feel a lot different had they come from behind to tie those hockey games and lose it in overtime. It would feel like, well, you got 2 points that maybe you shouldn't have otherwise. Whereas now, like it feels like they should be sitting with 12 points and sitting in a playoff spot at this moment in time, and left 2 on the board.
It's
so
not
I
as
guess
bad
it's
as if you're
how it
playing a
happened.
Western Conference team, but you're playing. I mean,
Teams you'll be
Columbus
fighting with,
can matter in this race. Toronto can matter in this race. Columbus probably more than Toronto. Toronto likely will probably start getting away from the Sabres as the season goes on. But Columbus could be right there with you, and you might regret this point when you gave them 2 points and should have given them none, and you should have had 2 and you only got 1.
Paul, what did you see on the overtime? You mentioned like Kulik's got a breakaway in overtime; it doesn't go in. The goal that ends up going in for Miles Wood, was there blame really to go around on every front? Does somebody's mistake stand out more than others?
Tuck was fine on that goal. He got kind of hung out by Kulik because the Sabres still are just horrendous. If there's one part of their game they really have to shore up, it's the middle of the ice, defending the middle of the ice. It has not been good. Most of the goals, if you look back at their goals against, is because they're soft in the middle of the ice. And Kulik he blew the zone. He was supposed to have the middle there, and he didn't have it. So now you've got Tuck in no man's land because he's expecting Kulik to be there. It's one-on-one coverage. Power, he had a horrible game. He'd been playing pretty well actually until this game, but this was not his night at all. I mean, just coming down, I believe Miles Wood might have started the rush, and he's one-on-one against Power, who should have the thing. He has him right in front of him. He should have it under control. Wood kind of gets around him there. They go over to the wall. Nothing. I mean, Power doesn't erase him there at the wall and ride him out of the play. Allows him to come out, very, very soft coming out, and just allows him to go right to the net to tip the puck in. And he's right with him basically, but he's not covering him. That's if we went over every goal they scored against this year, I'm going to say a lot. They're right with him, but they're not covering him, and it was the same thing there. So Lindy was more upset with what Kulik did, that he left the middle of the ice and kind of took off the other way. His point was, if Kulik doesn't leave the middle of the ice, we're not even talking about Wood because the play doesn't even get to the middle of the ice. He eliminates the play and they're off and going. So that was he was pretty annoyed with that part of the goal. But Kulik had a wide open breakaway right before that. I mean, I probably wouldn't mind Tuck or Thompson if I had my druthers who has the overtime breakaway. Jack Quinn might be the one, because Jack Quinn has some pretty sick moves when it comes to clean-cut breakaways or when you get into a shootout. But he had the chance in Toronto on a 2-on-1, coming right down with an elite shot coming right down the slot, and he decides to try to pass off to Thompson. Quinn, if he shoots that puck, is going to score quite a bit. But he didn't. He passed it off, and they missed a golden opportunity there. Well, Kulik's got a clean-cut breakaway. There's nobody near him. And, Greaves makes the save, and, they get a big save there. And, but what about 30 seconds later or less, it's in your net. So, and Kulik was a big part of it being in the net, and maybe he was upset with himself and kind of was distracted by missing the breakaway and wasn't paying attention as he should have been to coverage, for the overtime goal.
Nice use of if I had my druthers.
My druthers.
Yeah, if I had my druthers.
He used my druthers and sick move in the same line. That was a great job. That was
the first time it's ever happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Paul, the other, we can talk about breakdowns. The other thing I talked about with Joe, I actually shared your thought about, hey, you know what? It's 2-2. Get a game to overtime. If you get more games there and get that regulation tie point, all right, you can kind of just stack games and feel like, hey, look at that, we've got points in our last 10. I wouldn't.
Well, Jeremy, go back to a couple of years ago. The Islanders had what, 15
Yeah.
loser
Overtime
points?
losses,
And the thing
And
I
Buffalo had 5.
And the thing I like to say about that, I know you call it a loser point. A lot of people call it a loser point. I call it a regulation tie point because it is earned. You know, Paul, like that's the thing about the Islanders. Like, hey, they got 16 of those. I would sit here and say you might not like the system, but you have to earn a regulation tie. And, you know, last night, when you have a 1-goal lead late in the third period, and you give up that goal, well, okay. You've earned a regulation tie point, so I don't like to kick those points out. I think they are valuable.
I feel like a little bit of a hypocrite because I've been banging the drum all year. You got to start picking up these loser points. They matter.
Yeah.
And they weren't, as I said, they didn't play well in those first 3 games, but there was a loser point to be had in all 3 games. The Boston game, they were really bad in the Boston game, but yet Boston didn't make it a 2-goal game till 3 seconds were left in the game. It was right there when you had the goaltender pulled where you score a goal and you steal a point out of there, but you still get one. And that was concerning where those 3 plus the Montreal game, there are 4 games there where the loser point was right there for them and they didn't get them. Now the last 2 they have gotten them and I'm still complaining.
Well,
so I almost feel like a hypocrite.
One thing I do want to say, though, about that Islanders team, you're right. Like, they lost 16 in overtime. This is maybe an amazing thing that they did. This is probably rare. They lost 16 in overtime. They won 10 after overtime. So, like, that's not a winning record. I know once they get there, but if the Sabres are going to be a team that gets to a lot of overtimes because of the way they play, like, they got to figure out. Well, they got to be better in 3-on-3.
It's no sexy way to say it, but if you went to overtime 82 times, you might set the NHL points record because you'd have at least 82.
And if you won like a third of them,
30 of your game, that's a lot of points. So whatever. It's
And in this 5-game segment, they did what Lindy Ruff. The goal was attained. The first 5-game segment, they only got 4 out of the 10 points. This 5-game segment they just finished, they got 6 out of the 10, which is the goal.
Yep. Target met.
So,
yep.
And Lindy Ruff tells them if we're breaking a season in 5-game segments, if you get 6 out of 10 in all the 5-game segments, you're in the playoffs.
Yep.
Well, they did it this time. They didn't the first time. They're still minus 2 points when it comes to the 2 5-game segments. They got to make up those 2 points at some point.
And the next segment is Boston, Washington, Utah, St. Louis, and Carolina. And Paul, one thing, there's some better teams in there, right? Utah and Carolina are very, very good right now. The thing that they'll have to get better at, if they could pick one thing, is instead of playing 40-minute games, playing 60-minute games, because their first periods, multiple times, the first period has just been non-existent for them.
And what was better last year? The first periods. The year before, it was like they couldn't start a game to save their lives. Last year, the first periods were good, and then the second periods were pretty bad. So the coaching staff spent a lot of time this summer figuring out how can we be better in these second periods? What do we have to do? Because remember last year, all of a sudden it's like bang, 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 and 3 goals were in the net in the second period. So they're trying to figure out what do we need to do to be better in second periods. Now, I don't know if that equates to, well, we paid too much time to the second period, and now the first period's gone down the drain or whatever. Lindy Ruff made a little bit of light of it yesterday saying, well, it's a new start time at 6:45, and for some reason our team thought we were starting at 7:15.
Yeah.
Which is basically true. That's exactly – they started about 5 minutes left in the first period, and it was the Krebs line who, to me, they were the best line by far in that game. I mean, they're the ones that got the forecheck going when there was no forecheck. They were the ones that crashed the net when there was none of that. And it was nice to see them get rewarded with a goal. The way they were playing, they caused 2 penalties because they're making. They got Columbus's best 2 players to chase them all over the ice at the end of the second period and take stupid penalties. And Buffalo started the third period with a power play, and sure enough, just after that power play ended, it was the same line. Score a goal when Dunn gets his first NHL goal. So that was nice to see that line really, kind of give the Sabres a little bit of juice of, all right, wait a minute, our legs aren't moving, we're not doing anything, but theirs are. Why don't we maybe do what they're doing and maybe we'll be better? And they were much better in the second period and got themselves actually ahead in the hockey game.
You think they can convince them to ditch the Geertsen idea?
I would like to.
Yeah, I mean, like that game is a great example of what that fourth line can do and the best that it can bring for you. The idea of like getting Columbus to chase them around. Those are different players, and yet Columbus gets off their game trying to chase them around.
And another great example of you had a guy in your organization that you signed to an NHL contract who can do the job of what you think Gertson needs to be doing. There's a big difference, though. Dunn can play hockey. You can put him on the ice. When Gertson's in the lineup, you can't put him on the ice, and he plays like 2 or 3 minutes, and that's it, and nobody will fight him. I am convinced the other team tells their fighters or their tough guys, stay away from him because he's more valuable on the ice to us than he is sitting in the penalty box.
Right.
He's had opportunity for fights, and they're turning him down. And that's why I think they're turning him down, because he's more valuable on the ice to the other team. That's the big difference. Dunn is the role. This role is perfect for him being on that energy line, and you don't have to worry about putting him on the ice. He's not going to kill you when he's on the ice. He does that role perfectly. He had the only scoring chance really in the first period until they woke up. I mean, remember he forechecked about 10 minutes in and got the puck and brought it back out and had a pretty good scoring opportunity for himself. And he was the only one going. And so that's the thing that bugs me is you had a guy who can do what and Dunn can fight if you need him to do that. And he's perfectly willing to if you need him to do that. And, I mean, he's the one that kept that scrum going at the end of the period with their two best players out there. He went and grabbed, I think it was Marchenko. And it's like, all right, even if he goes to the penalty box with them, great. You just took their 9-point guy and 8-point guy and took them both to the penalty box with you. Fantastic. Nice job. So yeah, I Greenway might be ready for Boston. You'll need a roster spot. To me, waivers is the only way to go here for Gertson, and let's move on.
Paul Hamilton on the Sabres. Eye on the blue and gold, brought to you by Great Lakes Building Systems. We keep an eye on your business, so you don't have to. Great Lakes Building Systems, our business is protecting your business. All right, Paul, safe trip to Boston, and we will talk about that game, and hopefully the Sabres can continue to play as well as they have. Thanks very much.
Sounds good, guys. Take care.
All right.